Would like to welcome on stage Editor-in-Chief at VentureBeat, Blaise Zerega, and he'll be joined by Laurent Desegur, VP of Customer Experience at WalmartLabs. Please welcome them.
Sir?
All right, Laurent. Thank you. Thank you.
No, over here. No, let's dance.
All right, that's it. I found it.
They moved it around on us.
All right. So, hey, good morning, everyone. So, I'm Laurent Desegur from WalmartLabs. But before we start the presentation, I'd like to ask how many of you took Uber or Lyft today? Right. And how many took their self-driving car? We're in San Francisco, so I should ask. I won't ask how many took the common transportation because we're in San Francisco. But what I also want to say is that this is a question that 10 years ago, nobody would have raised their hands. And I think, we're moving into an area where, these things are happening very quickly. I think in 2 years from now, I will ask who took their self-driving share car to work, to this event. So this is how it goes. So I'm going to go over a presentation where I'm going to describe not what we do at Walmart. Everybody knows Walmart very well. We have 5,000 stores in the US. We have 140 million customers coming every week to our stores and buying a lot of products. What I'm here to describe is the connection between the stores and online, essentially. So what we see here is that we have a lot of customers that are coming to the stores and are shopping, through their phone already and looking for, more information through their devices. And so the connection that we're creating here is that we have 22 million customers that are every week coming and using their phone to shop using the application. And what we're trying to do through this application is essentially creating a bridge where we are enhancing the experience through a lot of machine learning. So this is the experience that we're getting today because we have enhanced essentially the notion of an omni-channel through the application. And the application essentially connects a user who would basically, in theory, go to a store and shop, as they do usually, but instead shop online and create basically a bridge by, putting a junction between the experience that they would, get in the stores through what they get through their phone. And here we are able, through this machine learning enhancement, being able to connect basically people so they're able to get deliveries inside their cars. So when I'm talking about the bridge, this is essentially what we call the digital relationship. And everything we want to do is make sure that there is a seamless experience between users that are connected online, shopping as you would do online on a website, shopping to a shopping cart and adding to cart, checking out, through the fact that we also want to leverage basically the physical stores and make sure that the experience is enriched. So how do we do that? So first of all, the notion of everyday low price is very much anchored into the company. We want to make sure that shoppers have all the time the best deals, the best discount, whatever matters for the customers is the price. But it's not only about the price, it's also about the convenience and the way to save time. So essentially, when we're able to create algorithms that are, basically able to give users the best price on the item, we're also making sure that we have, other services that are added to this experience through the applications and also through the experience in the stores. So what we do here, we have, for example, the application of machine learning in the space of customer support. It's a long time gone, the days where you had to go through parsing, a tree of decisions and making, choices like you're calling a phone. It's much more about, being able to understand what the customer wants when they type their queries or when they say queries, online. The other thing is we also are trying to create here is a bridge of choices. Essentially, what we are providing to the customer is a mode of personalization. But we're way beyond personalization when we create machine learning solutions. We're essentially trying to do predictions and trying to understand by speculating on the choices and the areas of what a shopper would normally buy, what are the things that they would continue recurrently buying without creating too much effort, and there's a notion of save time. And then there is also the notion of surprising the customer, because in so many cases, we want to understand how to delight the customer by providing better recommendation. So the notion of recommendation and personalization is deep inside this notion of experience, of customer experience, and we're building all of that with machine learning and the data we're getting from customers. So it doesn't have to be that complicated, right? What we are creating also is a mode where I think what's important for customer is to relate to the notion of comments, of reviews, of ratings. We all do that, right? We all look into what other people are buying, and based on the choices they're making, we also want to figure out if we could be personating the individual we're reading their review from. But the problem here is that it appears that there is a lot of abuse in the system of reviews and ratings, and what we're trying to build here with machine learning as well is a system of basically being able to filter the notion of, basically spam into the reviews. And so through this, we're basically implementing, based on experimentation, the notion of reviewing and making sure that, at the end, this is basically a genuine person reviewing the articles. So we also are leveraging machine learning for a lot of the stuff that is happening in a store. A traditional store has, of course, logistics around delivering items, picking up items, and going to the checkout lanes. Here we also are implementing the notion of a self-service, where you have these gigantic towers that are themselves implementing some, leveraging machine learning for basically creating a system of inventory, delivery, but also saving space. Because what we want to do is to maximize the quantity of items we can store in these towers. And so all of the stuff that we're doing is trying to figure out how we bring basically products quickly to folks that are coming and visiting our stores, because they also want to have a notion of experiencing basically what they're going to be buying. And here you have basically the store that are implementing in less than a dozen stores right now. We're launching pilots, and we are basically enhancing the experience through these deliveries. Here is one of the major contributing factor of basically shopping in a store, especially during peak holidays. We have basically here the ideas that customers want to buy things. They are really delighted with the choices, with the inventory, with the assortment. They really enjoy the fact that they can see what they're buying. But then at the end, we're creating a bottleneck because everybody needs to get out of the store with what they want to buy for the price they're buying it. And so essentially what we have here is basically a solution that doesn't work, right? You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. And so for that to work, what we need to think about is using technologies that we are building, that we're creating today, like such as machine learning, for example. What we want to do is to create a notion of the store of the future. It's unbelievable to think that in 5 years, we can shop the way we're shopping today, even online or even in stores. And so what we have done here, we have created a solution that leverage multiple facets of creating a frictionless experience for our users. Essentially, the fluidity of the experience is implemented because we are essentially detecting that person is generally buying what she put in the cart. We have a system of detecting fraud. We have a system of making sure that the person can go and scan the items themselves on the shelf. We also have enhanced the shelf by making sure that when the article is not on the shelf, they can also put it back in their cart and have it delivered to their place. And all of that is implemented, of course, as you could guess, with machine learning algorithm, because we want to efficiently implement the notion of routing, of delivering, and also of providing the best experience. So that said, I think the next step for us to develop our technology with and machine learning is around the user experience, enhancing the flows of the experience and creating more appropriate visualization. I think this is important for us to realize also that we're only at the beginning of what we're building right now. We have a lot of experiments going on. We have, of course, the luxury of getting a lot of data from customers and being able to understand how do we train our algorithm toward that. And that's thank you very much.
All right.
Blaise, Blaise, how are you
Thank
doing?
you, Laurent.
Blaise,
Good.
you have a cool name.
How are you?
Like Blaise Pascal, right?
Oui. How did you know?
Oh, I read a few things.
So, Walmart, AI. You didn't use the word AI. You used the word, you refer to it as machine learning.
Right, right.
And that's an important distinction. Tell me why.
Right. Well, I'm not against using AI. I really enjoy the fact that in a few years from now we will be able to build basically a system that will be indistinguishable from humans or even superhumans. That sounds like a very exciting thing to liberate people and do what they really want to do. What I think is important here to realize is in the case of e-commerce, what we're trying to do is to differentiate it because we're essentially making the machine learn from the data, right?
Yeah.
So what happened in the space of data is that, I turned out to join, Walmart about a couple of years ago, and I looked at the landscape, and I found out that there is a lot of data there. There were a lot of data.
Yeah. So what with the data that was gathered at the time and today, has that changed? What do you track?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So it changed because essentially what I've seen is that we had repositories of data. That grew exponentially, right? Yeah. So even the repository were growing exponentially, but we didn't know what to do. We have a lot of data, but we didn't know what to do with it. Yeah. So what we had to do is to step back and figure out how do we basically make sure that the data that we have is essentially usable for our algorithm.
Fidelity, right? Are you talking about
fidelity and also being able to also experiment a lot.
Yep. And so tell me a little bit more about the types of data you gather. I mean, everyone in the room, I assume, likes data, or everyone likes rice. I like rice. You like rice? We all love rice. We love data. So let's talk about data. So you go back, so you've got, massive scale, 55 million items in your online catalog.
Right.
You mentioned 260 million people shopping each month.
Right.
5,000 stores in the U.S.
Right.
So what kind of, what are the attributes that you're looking for when you mention the word data? What does it actually mean?
So first of all, we want to be very careful about, presenting data because we want also to make sure there is a privacy aspect to customers, right? So we're trying to basically make sure that the data we're, using is not something that we are going over in the privacy aspect of customers. The other thing is that we are very cautious about is the security aspect of the data. We own the data that we have, right? So which is really important for us to, make sure that, there is no issue into these areas. But the idea of data for us is essentially the fact that, and I encourage, the audience, of course, to think about it as well, is that we can start small. In fact, most of the experiments we've done have been starting very small and not to think about, the tons of dimension that would require a lot of, time and boiling the ocean and essentially getting nowhere because we would be completely overwhelmed. I think what we've done is looked in some specific areas around fashion, for example, and determined that simply by getting the geolocation of some of the items, we were able to recommend much better, and our customers were able to shop, much better into areas just by determining, some specific, genuine data that everybody can gather.
Yeah. So then walk me through that. So I saw a picture of a shopper holding her phone, walking down an aisle. If I'm either online or offline, what are the different ways? I understand, I can guess with the front, maybe tell me both the front end experience, but also what's happening on the back end. How's machine learning influencing what I see and what I may or may not do?
So what I want to say is from experience and what we've seen is that there's a lot of stuff you can do in the back end. You can go and process a lot of stuff offline, and you can basically get a lot more interesting, facts, and basically influence, basically the experience of a user when they come and shop either online or either even in the store. What is interesting is also the notion of trade-off between the speed at what you can return, essentially the basically the personalized data and the recommendation, and the notion of also people who really want to shop fast. And so there is a trade-off that you need to do between the delimitation between what you provide offline, what you can process on a 24-hour cycle, for example, and what you can even get on your phone. And knowing that on the phone right now, you cannot even do things like training of data, you just can do inference, you're able to provide already this experience because essentially what happened is a model has already been built from offline data.
So I think what you're describing then is this tension between getting a personalization correct and also a prediction,
Yes.
right, as to what I may or may not like,
Right.
but also hitting it at the right time. So in other words, you could dial up numerous instances of cloud computations and get me the perfect recommendation, but it could take 13 minutes, whereas you do the other and it takes nearly instantaneous. So do you have a magic number? Like how quickly do you need to get?
No, we don't have the magic number. I think the idea is also we're doing a lot of experimentation. I think when you build an infrastructure, in fact, one of the things that I really want to think about is when we build a team around machine learning expertise, we don't want to just put machine learning experts in the team. We also need to put other folks that have different skills, even I call it the experts and the enthusiasts, which is essentially you have an IT team and you basically also mix and create an hybrid skill of a team where you trade between what would be an operation mode and what would be a machine learning mode, and you try to basically balance it.
Right.
So at the end of the day, what you're doing essentially when you have people who are trained in doing experiments and product A/B test, and you mix that with machine learning, you're learning much more. And the algorithm later on can basically convert that back and take advantage of the training sets. So that's really what we are doing here.
And
it's not a magic recipe.
No,
I'm sure
no.
everybody
And so what I think about
the
really we're talking about here is this challenge, and I have to mention Amazon, right? So Amazon, you think about it, they're
I knew you would say that.
they're an online, starting online, they're moving to offline. You guys have been in both places all along,
Right.
And in fact, I mean, we talk about. You showed the Scan and Go, the store of the future. You were doing that started doing that in 2015.
2015, yeah.
Yeah, so you're far ahead in that respect.
Well,
but rather than get in, good. I'd love if you want to talk
no,
about it.
far away. I mean, this is basically for us. What matters is we start from the customer essentially, right? So the customer wants to shop with us, wants to do something where we provide the experience and they are delighted about it. Then we are really proud of it, Yeah. So it's okay for me to admit that there are more than one retail or one more than one online experience. It's fine. It's just the fact that what I think we've learned through the stores, and recently what we've done about a couple of years ago as well, is we merge basically the notion of technology in the store with the technology online. And since we've done that, we have done a tremendous work with the teams on the store side to be able to merge all of the data that they didn't necessarily have accessible online because they were like most of the stuff, I'm not going to say, but on mainframes and things like that, right? So what we've done is a lot of consolidation of the data. So basically, getting all of the things we had inaccessible online, merging it to the online aspect, and then leveraging from the customer to be able to access it from the fingertip, or even when they go on the shelf, is what we've done to make sure that the experience is what people want. Sure. And everybody will figure out the way that they want to exploit that. I think for us, it's more an exploration.
Right. What and of the different things that Walmart is moving into, so we saw the pickup tower, the Scan and Go, the associate delivery. To my mind, the associate delivery is perhaps the largest undertaking in many ways, thinking about the different factors. I mean, you're basically building a new Uber, in some ways, right? And thinking about the back end, is getting the inventory right at the right store, finding the right associate, the right time.
We can't do it because we have already the logistics, right? Walmart built a fleet of trucks like there is none other in the US, right? So we have a notion of logistics. We also understand very much that customers want to shop in a specific way, and we have to adapt to it. And so when we say we're creating an Uber, we're not. In fact, if there are opportunities for us to leverage, other share services to deliver, we will leverage it. In fact, there is nothing for us to say we're going to re-implement something that is already implemented.
So would you do a partnership with Uber?
I don't say that.
Yeah. What about, and I'm sorry, we're a little distracted. We're trying to figure out the time here, right?
Interesting question.
But, or for instance, another speaker who will be on stage tomorrow, DoorDash. They've also have a network
I use
of
DoorDash,
Dashers.
actually.
Yeah.
I use DoorDash.
So would we get
So listen, I think for us, the last mile is something we're talking a lot right now.
Yeah.
I think it's not really the privilege of machine learning to do the last mile. I think it's one of the commodities we try to add for our customers to be delighted. What I'm more interested in myself, and coming back to what we talk about in machine learning, is a front-end experience, is whatever comes to the customer that they can interact with should be basically something that we need to be proud about because I want to use it myself, right?
Yep.
So when it comes down to the door and knocking and picking up, then this is a different story for us to talk about maybe another time.
Okay, I have one last question. I think, I'm not sure how we are on our time, but you've been at AI, machine learning for data. I love data. For a while now.
For a while. Don't put my age on the stage.
or mine. But tell me, what's the biggest lesson you've learned? If you have any advice to give?
In a nutshell, because I think we're running out of time and I want to be correct to the next speaker, but essentially, I studied AI in France. I grew up and I programmed in Prolog. In fact, my first system was Symbolics. Lisp. I don't know if you guys know about that, but I'm dating myself in there. And what I noticed is not 10 years, but every 8 years, there is a phase where essentially AI comes back in the trend. And why am I here today talking about it is because I think this time it's a bit different. First of all, you have a lot of processing power, and thanks to the video games industry, you got these GPUs that were created and are here to harvest basically linear algebra and transform, right? The second thing I think which is very, very important is that, of course, you have the data, right? You have essentially a lot of data that we can store and we can manipulate, and this is something I haven't seen before. This amount of data where you can train algorithm either in supervised or semi-supervised or even in some cases reinforcement learning with neural network is absolutely amazing. And this is really exciting. So that's really why I'm into that.
Fantastic. You'll be around today?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Grab Laurent, ask him a lot of questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.